AI is not autonomous, dependent on us humans feeding the data. So if we are biased as humans, the machine will also be. Everything is much more thrilling, but it's new. And because I would say that the adoption is so pervasive and so many new industries are emerging and using AI, so we need to learn how we are moderating it, because of course it can go to amazing places. It can also go to some risky ones. Companies in their core are supposed to make profits. The fact that now we as an industry are coming and saying you also have to be very sociable, you need to take care of everyone. It's an optimistic, it's good, great, it's good thinking. But someone needs to make sure that the business model exists. Innovation here comes out of a need in most cases. And there are some very problematic sociocultural settings that the technology created here is catering them.
Hi, welcome to the next episode of the Global Business Dialogs. And today we are very eager and excited to have with us Ms. Maya Sherman, the Innovation Attaché at the Israeli Embassy of India. And she works as the AI Literacy Project co-lead at GPI in collaboration with OECD. She has been working as an AI policy researcher, advisor, and has been a lecturer across various institutions, both academic as well as corporates across the globe. And today she's here at Great Lakes, Gurgaon campus. So Maya, how does it feel like to be here?
Wonderful. First of all, I'm based out of Delhi, but for me, always returning to Gurgaon is special. I was initially here, so wonderful to see the beautiful campus and interacting with all of you.
Absolutely. So in the topic of our conversation today, right, considering the background that you come from with respect to AI, technology integration, and innovation, my first question to you is, what excites you the most about the integration of AI in business applications, and what concerns do you have?
I think that what I like the most is the fact that we need to test so many new things at the moment. So there are a lot of concerns because everything new brings a lot of excitement, but we need to learn how to moderate it. With AI, something quite special that is happening is that I feel that this is probably one of these very special technologies that are bringing everyone from the most non-technological to the most tech-savvy ones. All of a sudden, we all need to think differently. So I think that businesses today are becoming much more interesting because all of a sudden, we're using AI to work at scale. We no longer have this limitations of only one individual capacity of real-time translation. All of a sudden, we have it. So from this standing point, everything is much more thrilling, but it's new. And because I would say that the adoption is so pervasive and so many new industries are emerging and using AI, so we need to learn how we are moderating it, because of course it can go to amazing places. It can also go to some risky ones, quite similar to a lot of other technological disciplines. But I would say that I don't think of a different technologies that has been so, I don't know if to say loved, but I think that it's gaining so much popularity and people want to be associated with it. And I think this sociological shift is interesting because people want to be, first of all, they want to know more about AI. Yep. They want to be heard as people who are doing this. So for businesses, so many opportunities, but also the bad guys can do something. So we need to learn how we are channeling our energies to the positive aspects, but in the same time, keep our minds understanding that cyber threats will actually increase much more using AI, a lot of risk of biases, of discrimination, of ethical issues all over. So it's a good balance that we need to take, but I think very exciting times for anyone in the industry.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, especially with respect to the integration that we are seeing. And every day when we wake up, there's a new technology that is coming. And And so my next question, you just talked about biases and AI, the ethical implications as well. So maybe if you could tell us, we often hear these days about AI bias. Uh, what exactly does it mean in the context of business applications? And what context does it have in its implications?
So, on the most logical way, and I think it's important to explain this, especially when I'm speaking about biases, AI is not autonomous, dependent on us humans feeding the data. So, if we are biased as humans, the machine will also be. There'll come times in which we'll discuss machine bias in the AGI phase, but we're not there. And I'm saying this because, first of all, we need to understand that the fact that biases exist is not something bad, it's natural. What happens when we have biases at scale? What happens when instead of only one Maya who is biased and perhaps prefers to do one thing, I'll have thousands of Mayas who think like me, will do the same echo chamber, and we can all actually push for a certain direction.
Yep.
Now, this is risky. It's risky in electoral processes, and that's a heavily discussed topic. But think of businesses. In the end, even like selling a certain product, or products that are using data to give some recommendations. If the recommendations are actually using data sets that are biased, for instance, reflecting the day-to-day interactions. For instance, if we have someone who is against certain genders, they are perhaps the developers or somewhere in the process. If now for some reason I'll get some recommendations on purchase that are biased because of gender, I'll be in a problematic position because I'm not really cannot say perhaps it's reliable statistically, but the source is perhaps something that we do not want to accept as society. So this comes the ethical challenge. On the one hand, we want to be truthful to the data. We actually have the option now to be using a lot of data, and for businesses it's great. But what happens when the source is not what we want to see in society? So businesses need to understand that we need to moderate a bit the data statistics. So we as humans have problems and we have loopholes. So if we want the machine not to replicate this directly, there is a lot of statistical work that needs to be done. And this is crucial for any business who's been working on data.
Yep.
And especially for businesses who are trying to go for different audiences, diverse groups. Everything comes over there.
Yep. And when we talk about a company which is deploying AI rapidly, how should leadership in the company weigh the ethical considerations against performance or profits?
So I think that it's a very tricky, I think, paradox of companies today, and it's not such an obvious one to balance because companies in their core are supposed to make profits. The fact that now we as an industry are coming and saying you also have to be very sociable, you need to take care of everyone. It's an optimistic, it's good, great, it's good thinking. But someone needs to make sure that the business model exists. So this balance between a company coming and saying, we need to see profits in the end, we are not pro bono. In the same time, there is a greater need to take care of populations and diverse populations because the world is becoming crazier, more complex, more threats. Everything is digitally driven, interconnected. So it's not that we can only think of profits anymore. And it's a big shift for businesses. The fact, we have terms as responsible AI coming into the picture, algorithmic fairness. It's a pain, and it's quite a pain for anyone who's been creating businesses. But it's a pain that they need to take care of. Because now, especially when we have a technology that's cutting across all disciplines, we don't have this privilege of coming and saying, we won't be designing ethically. It's not an easy process, but you see a lot of disciplines emerging. You have ethics by design, meaning how product designers are supposed to be creating the product so they'll be less biased. How do we make sure that it's more accessible? So the beauty is that currently, because it's becoming such a booming industry, everything connected to responsible AI, so all of a sudden there are new business models showing that actually having products and startups that are helping to handle with the biases and doing the social purposes are also becoming profitable. So I feel that what's been a good industry development is the fact that We are gradually learning how to make responsible AI more profitable for us. And the beauty is it's also impactful for society. It's not perfect yet, but I feel that we are slowly heading there.
Absolutely. No, I think that's quite an interesting point where you mentioned that uh, we are seeing institutions not just focus on profits, but also look at giving back to the society and then still developing the ethical usage of AI so as to give back. Right, so the connection of the dots between the profits giving back to the society and the evolution of AI with respect to the deployment of it in various forms and ways, I think that's very aptly put forward. And since you've had an experience of working with the government, with the embassies, and especially that you work with the Israel embassy in India, my question to you is, how do you see governments and institutions, including corporates, uh, evolving their policies uh, to ensure the usage of ethical AI? And are businesses prepared for what's coming?
It's a great question because I feel that we are sometimes there is a big gap, I think, between what companies are currently declaring, and there is a quite big tendency to declare and say that we are very responsibly when it comes to AI usage and we are very ethical without really understanding what ethics in AI is. I think that we are also learning what ethical AI would mean in businesses and business applications. But the beauty in it, as in every technology, we are testing. We are trying and seeing what can be the new standards for creation. Are businesses ready? No. But we're not supposed to expect them to be ready. Like,
Yeah,
first of all, I think that there is a big issue that we are requiring everyone all of a sudden to understand what ethics is.
yeah,
Now, I love ethics. So that's been my domain. I think it's a great discipline, but I've always been into research. The thing is, ethics in AI has some business elements, but there are a lot of other more nuanced implications that are not as theoretical. And there are a lot of other theoretical aspects that are not really relevant for businesses. So I think that in my perspective, we need to be slightly more agile in what we are allowing business to do at the moment. Coming and requiring them, you have to be ethical without really saying what ethics is. And I think that's perhaps what sometimes bugs me. Ethics for me will be very different than ethics for you.
of course.
The thing that there is quite a big tendency for, I think, sometimes the bigger institutions to come and say, these are the ethical guidelines. We need this on the multilateral level. On the business to business, we need to understand there is so much context to this. I hope that we'll be moving into a space in which we are able to say, what are the business use cases that we can say a bit more? What are the standards we're expecting? So a more scenario-based and more contextual perspective to what businesses are supposed to do, I feel would be a smarter direction. And I think that also what reality kind of forces us to do, because so many different things are happening across countries. So we need to also think, okay, not everything would work best for each. And what's the standards that will be for business X, it will be very different than business Y.
Absolutely.
So we need to be a bit sensitive with this, I feel.
In fact, that you spoke about the business use cases, right? I think that was quite very important for this discussion. And what I also feel is to be able to add, and this is in the context of my next question, is what qualities or the mindset that the startup leaders or the future company leaders should cultivate in order to responsibly lead this AI digital revolution?
I think that first of all, patience.
I see.
I mean, all startup founders today, I would say, like, we need a lot of patience because things are changing all the time. But I think that more than anything, and again, there are the more traditional mainstream answers. I mean, I can always say resilience because people have to know how to get up to highs and have the lows and still get back to creation. But I think that today, what's needed is openness to new disciplines. The founders of today have to be so open in their perspective to learning about discipline that they are not connected to their business because it's new. So government, regulation, connection with academia, all is coming together, and there is no one set of guidelines. So we are also learning how to live in a multi-stakeholder character. So I feel that this ability to be able to engage with different stakeholders across countries sometimes, that would be a core trait for future business founders, creators. But not everyone is supposed to reach the top. I think that we're still assessing who will be the next generation of the excelling business leaders. And that will take time, because it will take time from going from the anecdotal cases, of like, oh, this one got the exit, he's amazing, let's follow him, rather than having an evidence of certain trends. And for this, we would need time. And let's see what other technology might come up. I think that's another thing to consider.
Absolutely.
AI is now the buzzword, but when quantum arrives, what will happen? Space technology is becoming more mature. What happens geopolitically as well? Also advancements within AI might shift some of these discussions.
Absolutely.
So we need to be so agile and just, again, patient and just move so quickly to whatever is happening.
So I'll take some key words from what you just mentioned. You talked about patience, you talked about resilience, and you talked about agility as well. Now, if we put it in the context of today's business school students, right? What do you see, in your opinion, business school students? It could be in India, it could be anywhere in the world. These students be focusing on in order to be able to manage AI more responsibly in the future?
I think that the beauty in business students generally is this kind of understanding that you are not focusing on one discipline. Because when you're in business, you're learning glimpses. And more than anything, you're learning how to manage domains, but you're not necessarily going into one of them. So in many ways, I feel that what would be smart is, first of all, understand that it's a smart way of thinking, because you need to now, I think, especially business students, learn how to think more critically. Find the domains you're interested in. Meaning, I think especially now, things are becoming more competitive because all of a sudden there are machines that can automate a lot of our day-to-day lives. We need to see where we thrive. Now, this can be a domain, a subject matter expertise that can be relevant in terms of the subject behind. It can also be a certain technique or tool, but I think that it's true, I think, for all students, but I think especially for those who are not taking a specific expertise in studies, we also need to think how we are cultivating our added value in an era in which individual capacity is no longer limitation. We can automate at scale. There are biases, there are a lot of issues with it, but it's part of our day-to-day life. So I think that, still finding the expertise that you need and what the added value that you have in a quite competitive landscape. And more than anything, not thinking just in your own environment. So the world is becoming more global. Technology, I think, has a quite big part in it, because Gen AI help us connect between different places. There is a digital divide, but still in its core, and I think, if you're thinking of, social media, Facebook, what Zuckerberg created, initially it was supposed to connect people all over the world in a platform. That's what the internet was supposed to serve. It went to a lot of other darker places as well, but that's how it started, I feel. So also when we as students, I would say, looking for the international markets, looking for the more interested points, because today it's no longer enough to be a good student who can write assignments. I feel that today the expectation is much, much higher, because a lot of the things that used to be kind of our limitations, such as capacity, scope, using data, we have them now. So from this point, we need to really upgrade the way that we think, the way that we interact with people. So it's an interesting evolutionary process, but not everyone would be able to excel it in the same way. So I think that's what I would advise.
So as an innovation expert, what is your view about India's current innovation landscape, and how do you see it evolving in the next couple of years, especially with the talent pool that we have in-house
Yeah.
and the opportunities that exist, say, between Israel and India?
So I would say that, as a foreigner who moved to India from the UK, I'm absolutely amazed by the ecosystem here. And it's true that it's so different, but what I think that I like the most is this hunger to do more. Like I feel I've met probably the most ambitious, most creative people, and they're all quite different. I think that's what makes also the ecosystem here so strong, that you have different technologies created in according to the different hubs of the country. So the beauty and the diversity is also coming in the innovation. I think that's key. Another thing is the fact that innovation here is not coming to satisfy people or just to look nice over LinkedIn. Innovation here comes out of a need in most cases. And there are some very problematic sociocultural settings that the technology created here is catering them. If we're taking it a bit more into examples, if we look at the last years, what India has done in the technological space, it's absolutely astonishing. From the AI space, the presidency of India in GPI, leading I think the biggest summit that we have today and around this area, the scope of literacy program that we have on AI combined with Microsoft, the biggest universities here, literacy programs, for millions of youth with Intel. I mean, UP government is a good example for this.
Yeah.
And the list just goes on and on. And honestly, if we go now state by state, I would say that's the power. Each state here brings something else. And it's true that sometimes the population can look a bit as an obstacle to innovation because it's so big. How do you moderate everything? But the hunger here of people to do extra, to be more creative, to solve problems, I think that's what puts India in a different place from other countries. So for me, it's been so phenomenal to work here. I feel like I'm in a constant FOMO from what will happen next. But I think that for me, it's been such a pleasure also to connect my country a bit with India, because I see a lot of different points, but also a lot of similarities, especially in this hunger.
Yeah.
This hunger to do extra.
Yeah.
Like I got a glass, but I'll make it into a few bottles and it will become a bar. And that's the beauty. Because when you have such hungry ecosystems, different, that complement, sky's the limit. And we honestly, the embassy, we have so much work here. And I think that all of us, we are just trying to go from one thing to another. But that's the beauty, because we see this connection. And I do always say this, that I feel, yes, we complement each other in terms of needs and viewpoints and some of our threats as well. But I think that what always brought this friendship and partnership into life was the fact that, first of all, it started as friendship. It started by the fact that we have such warm cultures connected, by the fact that Israel is like going to India and India is like going to Israel. And we are seeing this human-to-human connection, because as much as we speak about technologies, it is about the humans creating it. So I think that's what puts the partnership between the countries in such a different landscape and light, and very exciting things to come as well. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. And with all that you mentioned, especially with respect to the hunger in the belly, right? And the Indians love to just invest heavily in terms of time, efforts, and of course money as well, in the right things at the right time. And I believe the integration of technology in businesses today has become ever more important. And it's all about either you implement or you perish, right? Because the way in which the world is moving fast, I think it's at light speed, and it's moving in fractions of seconds. And when we see, while we are talking, I believe there could be some new technology that has been born somewhere on the planet. And so it was lovely having this conversation, Maya.
Thank you
and
for having me.
I believe with your experience at the embassy, as well as your other experiences as professional with GPI and the other organizations, I think there's lots to learn. And thank you so much for your time with the students as well. So how was your experience being at Great Lakes Gurgaon campus today?
I think it was wonderful. First of all, beautiful campus, so kudos for that. But I think also very interesting questions and inquiries from the students. I could see also their curiosity and also their ability to think more critically on engagement with other countries. So I felt that the engagement was very interesting and I would say very focused and relevant to what we're currently working on. So it was great to see this because I think that not sure if some of them were able to visit the country, but the fact that they're able to research and understand so simplistically what are the interesting components in the relations between the country. I think that's the beauty and that's wonderful thing, and hopefully we can have more engagements like this in future occasions.
And you know what? We are looking forward to strengthening this relationship with Israel in the coming years. Of course, India and Israel have been very closely working on a variety of initiatives, and with your administration in Israel, with the government, as well as with our government here in India, I believe there's lots that we still have to achieve. And, we on the academic side are always there to help and support you in whichever way possible. Thank you once again, Maya.
Thank you so
thanks to all
much.
of you for watching this episode.